All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Jorge's Isolation Podcast. This week has been very crazy. As you can see, I'm by myself on this episode. Let's backtrack to where we were a week ago. A week ago, I am in South Texas, and a cold front started rolling in, and internet started getting a little shoddy. Our power started flickering by Sunday night, and apparently by Monday we're in a full-fledged you know winter storm that affected the whole state. We didn't realize the magnitude of what we were in for that whole this whole week, really. Fortunately for me and my family, for me, Rosa and Anapao, we were without power from Monday afternoon till Tuesday afternoon, so basically one full day. We know folks that were without power from Sunday night, around 1 a.m., early Monday morning, midnight. And some of those people are barely getting their power back, as of yesterday or Friday. So a whole week without power. And it was cold. And I've been in New York for the last 8 years prior to this. So we've been here for 1 year. So 8 years before that, I was in New York, where the year before we moved back down here, we had a 6-degree winter. When my wife was pregnant with Anapao in 2019, I remember I had the flu, and I walked to the doctor's office with a flu and 102-degree temperature in 6-degree weather. So my body has been accustomed to the cold weather in the Northeast, but apparently, my statesmen, my fellow Texans here, it's very uncommon, and this weather is very uncommon. We get cold fronts here and there, maybe like in Dallas, it's 30 degrees for a night, or in San Antonio, it gets to be like 30 degrees. Here, we'll get a 30-degree night, and then it's 80 degrees the next day. Like right now. Okay. So a week ago, we were in the high 40s, dropping down to the 30s and the 20s, and it's 80 degrees right now. The Texas weather in winter is warm. Usually I mean, the coolest we ever get really is the 50s, and that's for like a day or two, and then we're back up to the 70s, the 80s, and then we'll drop back down for a little bit. So this whole winter storm was just a huge fluke, and I know that there's a ton of people pointing fingers at this and that, and ERCOT, really, our electrical grid system is truly what failed us. And um the the fact that they just ignored winterizing dials and gauges and all that stuff. We can blame the windmills, we could blame gas and solar, we can blame the governor, but at the end of the day, we just didn't winterize anything's like, you can blame everybody, but like, we didn't winterize pipes. Our pipes in Texas, we're not winterized. They're up in attics. Several videos you can see circulating around the internet right now. You can see pipes bursting and coming through, ceilings, and flooding houses. And I mean, at some point it was freezing, so a lot of that water was just turning into ice in people's houses because there's no heat anywhere. And it got really sad because people were freezing. Like down here, we were in the 30s for like 2 or 3 days. And the one thing about Texas is we always barbecue. And fortunately for me, I always have wood on hand for barbecue, and we have a fireplace. One of the weirdest things is that here in South Texas, in the Rio Grande Valley in particular, houses with chimneys and fireplaces are very rare. We don't need them. We don't need them to stay warm. It's never cold enough. Like, we have been here for a whole year and never once used that fireplace to keep us warm or just to turn on in general. And I'm just so grateful that we had that, and I had the wood. I was able to turn on that fireplace, but other people were not as fortunate as us to have had that luxury and the wood availability. And some people just turned to desperate times. They were turning on um, barbecue pits in their houses to try to stay warm, and were suffering from carbon monoxide poisoning, heating themselves in the cars in the garage without opening and poisoning themselves. It was a very, very weird week, and a very just another event to go on with the craziness that's happened pretty much for the last year. It's going to be in 1 month, pretty much as of March 13th. It's going to be 1 year truly since the crazy pandemic chaos began. I mean, the pandemic has been around, they said there's traces of it since November of 2019 or December, but truly like the shutdowns and the lockdowns and the quarantining and all that truly began on March 13th. That's for me, that's when the industry shut down. That's when they shut down restaurants. That's when they shut down businesses. It was supposed to be 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks turned into a month, and then a month turned into 6 weeks. And here we are, almost a year later, we're still dealing with the pandemic. And people forget that life does continue during a pandemic. So in between that time, we've also had a hurricane down here where we were without power. We've also had a crazy election. There's, the craziness that happened on the Capitol. There was also this winter storm that just destroyed Texas's power grid for a week and destroyed several houses and pipes. And it's just craziness. And we just need some good news, right now. And so I'm rolling solo this week because I mean, I couldn't scrounge up a guest. And even if I wanted to get a guest, I couldn't really go back and forth because the internet connections is very shoddy. Like this is true isolation podcast. It's just me by myself, just talking right now for a few minutes. I got to do a lot of catch up and try to round up some guests for the next few weeks. But before I do any of that, and before I go any further, amidst all this chaos and amidst, you know, everything that's happened this week, there are a bunch of heroes in this state that really stepped up when they could. Whenever there's any kind of natural disaster, whether there's a hurricane, I remember when the lockdowns were first issued, people stormed grocery stores. I remember with the pandemic a year ago, people were just buying up all the toilet paper and paper goods and Lysol and wipes and all that, and we couldn't find wipes for our daughter to change her diapers and all that. There's this panic buying ensues, and people buy the most odd things. Before a hurricane, people buy up all the canned goods and there's foods. I think here in South Texas, we're more accustomed to hurricane, awareness and being prepared for hurricanes. So people usually have water on hand and some canned goods and meat. And after a hurricane, like the storm itself lasts for a few hours, and if it barely hits us or if it just goes north or south of us, we're gonna barbecue, just because we already have the goods to barbecue. With this winter storm, as the heat never came on, the power never came on, the only power sources you had were vehicles. So gas stations were just being swarmed by a lot of people. And the heroes that I have to say are those gas station attendants that had to work throughout all that chaos and seeing those huge lines wrapped around blocks and blocks all around town here in McAllen, Texas. And I just got to say thank you to all of you. And for the people that did work during these winter storms at restaurants. I know, like at a restaurant that my wife and I love, that's right here on 23rd and Dove, La Justicia. It's a Mexican restaurant. Some of the best Mexican food here in McAllen, Texas. They were working with a two-person crew. It was the young lady, waiting and taking the orders, and you have the cook, and there was a full restaurant. So we gave them extra money because they're working hard, and we have a gas stove, but guess what, our stupid stove ran on electricity. We didn't have power. So that's why we were forced to go out there. And the people working at Whataburger just worked tirelessly, where you see those lines where people were waiting for like 45 minutes, half an hour to an hour to just get some Whataburger and coffee and just stuff to stay warm. I just got to thank everybody working at Whataburger, and the people working at HEB who always have to deal with these panic buyers. HEB, any HEB around here in the state of Texas was swarmed and panic. People were panic buying and wiping out. There's pictures all around where all the produce section is wiped out, the meat section wiped out, everything. Milk, we're trying to find milk for our daughter. So people at HEB, at Foy Supermarket, just all around, Junior Supermarket, all these grocery store workers here in the state of Texas Thank you for working tirelessly, like throughout this, leaving your own houses, leaving your families to work to make sure you can provide not only for yourself, but for others, to make sure others have food and stuff to keep them warm and nourished during the time this week without power. It's been so crazy. Plumbers and carpenters and contractors are going to have your hands full. But I also have to thank all the linemen working out there on our cables who, this isn't weather that they're used to working with in South Texas. Like, people kept saying, like, how can Texas handle 115-degree summers, for months and months, months? But you know what? It's just, I don't know. I don't know electricity. I don't know what was going on with their power outlet or power grid or whatever. But I just want to thank all those electricians and the linemen out there working tirelessly to try to defrost and thaw out our grid to get power back, and working to our public works men and women who are out there trying to thaw out and work on our busted water pipes, who have their hands full this week as this storm has come and gone. It's 80 degrees right now. I just want to thank all those people that are going to be working on fixing all these pipes that have left a lot of damage throughout the state of Texas. And I just send my prayers and my positive thoughts to the people whose houses were damaged due to the frozen pipes and all of the damages to their houses, through this winter storm, whether it's damaged pipes or just the water flooding. I don't know what it is. It's been a crazy week, and the one thing about Texans is that we're very resilient. We're very strong, and I know a lot of people from the Northeast. You could mock us and make it a political issue, but at the end of the day, our politicians aren't always going to be there for us. We've known that forever and ever. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican or Democrat. This isn't a political podcast. The fact of the matter is, those people are just people, and a lot of times they're just in it for their own ego. A lot of time they don't care enough about the people themselves. So we, the people, need to take care of us. So if you can, here in Texas, if you can donate, if you can, just look up the local food banks. There's also different organizations that are giving back to people who have lost, houses that don't have places to keep warm for food. The local food bank right now, I know that they were understocked because of everything that was going on. The grocery trucks were stopped for a while because of the icy roads. I know that there was a lot of families affected by what happened in Fort Worth with that 100-car pileup. This is just has been such a crazy week, and you know, I know that we as Texans get get mocked a lot by the rest of the country. That we're a bunch of backwards cowboys and you know just rednecks and Mexicans, and but we are a strong group of people that have always flourished. There's a reason why people are leaving California and New York to come to Austin, Texas. There's a reason why people are leaving San Francisco. There's a reason why people are wanting to come to Texas, because we have a beautiful way of life. We have a beautiful state. Like I said, you could put your politics aside. Texas is an awesome state. We have almost any kind of terrain that you could ask for. We have the Gulf Coast, we have desert, we have mountains, we have hills, we have rivers, we have plains, we have it all. We have swamps. Texas is a beautiful state, and my state right now is going through it, but I know that we're gonna come out on the other end, and we're going to be a lot stronger because of it. So that being said, I just want to let everybody know that my family and I, we're doing okay. We were very fortunate enough that we were only without power for just a little bit. We were able to find the necessities that we needed. Thankful, like I said, to the stores, the grocery stores. Foy's Supermarket actually had the milk that we needed for our daughter. We actually got some meat. We have charcoal there as well. So, if the power went out again, we could just throw it on the grill. Texas, that's what we do. We barbecue. I just want to thank my parents and friends, Patrick and Courtney, because when we're without electricity, they put us up for the night so that we could keep our daughter warm, and I truly appreciate them. I also want to, send, a lot of love to the farmers out there who, really suffered with this freeze. They lost a lot of crops. And it's really tough because, you can be in New York eating at Sweet Green or any of those places, but you have to remember that a lot of that produce comes from South Texas. And when you eat at Sweet Green or eat it chopped, or if you eat it at any of those salad spots in the north, you got to remember, like, a lot of that produce comes from South Texas, and they're suffering too. So please, send, find support for local farmers, small farmers, organic farmers. Like, they're working to keep us fed, and they really were dealt a tough one this week, and this year in particular. Everyone has. So I really hope that things look up this week, and now that the sun is out, it's shining. I kind of hope that that's like a sign that that's a sign for better things to come, um, for the week and maybe the rest of the year. So yeah, that's been the week right now. It's been our life here in South Texas, and it's funny because my wife and I, we moved down here a year ago, and New York is crazy. It's crazy. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's always some crazy going on there, and we thought that moving back down, we'd escape the crazy, and our daughter wouldn't have to be around the crazy for much longer. And guess what? The crazy followed us down here. So I'm sorry, Texas, but we're resilient, and this is a very tough time for a lot of us in a lot of industries, and I feel like the things are going to get better. In the meantime, I just want to give a shout out to, um, well, I do have a shout out to, like, Luis Moreno and Ben Mano, and Josh Kennedy and John Gonzalez. They're going to be helping me out with a really cool project that I have coming out right now. It's Jorge's House of Horrors. And before you start saying, "Wow, this guy is super creative with his the names of his projects," because Jorge's Isolation Podcast and Jorge's House of Horrors, you just got to remember, I just go with the first idea usually most of the time. But it's a really cool website that we have going on, where we talk about horror movies, books, TV shows, true crime. If you love true crime, we also have a series. Ben and I have been working on breaking down every episode of The Twilight Zone, the original, Rod Serling's creation. It's one of our favorite shows. That's how Ben and I bonded. You see a little snippet of what Ben and I were working on a few episodes ago. He was on the podcast. Luis is a good friend of mine. He's been breaking down a bunch of horror novels so we could read, and just give you some good advice on recommendations for books to read. And then we're also going to break down some paranormal stuff and some cryptids. Let's just get crazy and weird. Like, this is what's happening. We need to keep ourselves creative and have fun. Truly, I mean, there's a lot of craziness out there. We could be negative and we can just sit around and just do nothing, but let's just have fun and talk about crazy stuff. So jorgeshouseofhorrors.com is the website, and you should go and check it out. It's fun, and there's gonna be a lot of content coming out, as well as new episodes of Jorge's Isolation Podcast. I have some cool guests coming up in the next few weeks, and I'm pretty excited. We've already hit 30 episodes, 30 freaking episodes. So I've had pretty much 28 guests. I had Renes and Danny on twice, but the last episode was with Raul Castillo. He's going to have a huge year. Robbie Ramos is going to have some stuff coming out later this year. I just feel like there's just going to be a lot of good stuff happening with a lot of my guests. So go ahead. Thank you for listening so far. And sorry for not having a guest this week. It's just been a little crazy. If you know, if I don't say so myself. But thank you for listening and watching so far. Next week we'll be back up and running with guests and everything. But Yeah. So if you're out there and you don't have any water, my heart goes out to y'all. Same thing with without power. Hopefully, they can get that turned on and get the water situation fixed. I hope that the cities can come together and help each other out in this time of need. And I know that's what Texans do. That's what we do here. And yeah, so thank you very much. Everybody, go ahead and hit the subscribe button on the YouTube channel. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button on Spotify. If you're watching or listening on Spotify or listening on iTunes, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Just download every single episode of this podcast, catch up, find out what we're about. And you're going to see a lot of these guests have huge years. Like I'm catching them right at the infancy of their careers, and they're just going to be going boom, straight skyrocket right up. So thank you for listening. Please be kind to one another. There's no need for people saying, "Oh, Texans, you don't know how to handle cold, weather." And Texans, you need to like say, "Hey, stop saying like, hey, New York, you don't know how to handle heat." I mean, two different climates, two different zones. But guess what? I think that's going to change. We're gonna climate change might be real. I don't know. I'm not a scientist, but it did get really cold here. So thank you for joining me on this bonus episode. Like I said, I'll be back to normal next week. We're going to have some good guests, and stay safe and please be kind to one another. All right. Have a good one. Have a great week. And the challenge for this week is to tell 5 people about this podcast. And the best way to do it is just to get a link. You get the link on Spotify or iTunes or even on YouTube, hit share, copy the link, and just text it to 5 random friends and say, hey, you need to watch or listen to this. Do that. And then let's just get more people listening to this. Let's just get people talking. All right. So have a good one. Thank you for listening and watching. Have a great one and be kind to one another.